Perfect time to clean the toilet is right before you wash yourself in the shower anyway. The purpose of resetting each room is not simply to clean up after the last action, but to prepare for the next action. When I walk into a room, everything is in its right place. Knuckles wrote, because I do this every day and every room stuff always stays in good shape. People think I work hard, but I'm actually really lazy. I'm just proactively lazy. It gives you too much time back. Whenever you organize a space for its intended purpose, you're priming it to make the next action easy. For instance, my wife keeps a box of greeting cards. They are pre-sorted by occasion: birthday, sympathy, wedding, graduation, and more. Whenever necessary, she grabs an appropriate card and sends it off. She is incredibly good at remembering to send cards because she has reduced the friction of doing so. For years, I was the opposite. Someone would have a baby and I would think I should send a card, but then weeks would pass, and by the time I remembered to pick one up at the store, it was too late. The habit wasn't easy. There are many ways to prime your environment so it's ready for immediate use. If you want to cook a healthy breakfast, place the skillet on the stove, set the cooking spray on the counter, and lay out any plates and utensils you'll need the night before. When you wake up, making breakfast will be easy. Want to draw more? Put your pencils, pens, notebooks, and drawing tools on top of your desk within easy reach. Want to exercise? Set out your work kit, clothes, shoes, gym bag, and water bottle ahead of time. Want to improve your diet? Shop up a ton of fruits and vegetables on weekends and pack them in containers so you have easy access to healthy, ready-to-eat options during the week. These are simple ways to make the good habit that path of least resistance. You can also invert this principle and prime the environment to make bad behaviors difficult. If you find yourself watching too much television, for example, then unplug it after each use. Only plug it back, and if you can say out loud the name of the show you want to watch, this setup creates just enough friction to prevent mindless viewing. If that doesn't do it, you can take it a step further and plug the television and take the batteries out of the remote after each use, so it takes an extra 10 seconds to turn it back on. And if you're really hardcore, move the television out of the living room and into a closet after each use. You can be sure you'll only take it out when you really want to watch something. The greater the friction, the less likely the habit. Whenever possible, I leave my phone in a different room until lunch when it's right next to me. I'll check it all morning for no reason at all, but when it is in another room, I rarely think about it, and the friction is high enough that I won't go get it without a reason. As a result, get 3 to 4 hours each morning when I can work without interruption. If sticking your phone in another room doesn't seem like enough, tell a friend or family member to hide it from you for a few hours. Ask a coworker to keep it at their desk in the morning and give it back to you at lunch. It is remarkable how little friction is required to prevent unwanted behavior. When I hide beer in the back of the fridge where I can't see it, I drink less. When I delete social media apps from my phone, it can be weeks before I download them again and log in. These tricks are unlikely to curb a true addiction, but for many of us, a little bit of friction can be the difference between sticking with a good habit or sliding into a bad one. Imagine the cumulative effect of making dozens of these changes and living in an environment designed to make the good behaviors easier. The bad behavior is harder. Whether we are approaching behavior change as an individual, a parent, a coach, or a leader, we should ask ourselves the same question: how can we design a world where it's easy to do what's right? Redesign your life so the actions that matter most are also the actions that are easiest to do. Chapter summary: human behavior follows the law of least effort. We will naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. Create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible. Reduce the friction associated with good behaviors. When friction is low, habits are easy. Increase the friction associated with bad behaviors. When friction is high, habits are difficult. Prime your environment to make future actions easier. 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. Wildlife is widely regarded as one of the greatest dancers and choreographers of the modern era. In 1992, she was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship, often referred to as the Genius Grant, and she has spent the bulk of her career touring the globe to perform original works. She also credits much of her success to simple daily habits. I begin each day of my life with a ritual. She writes, I'll wake up at 5:30 and put on my workout clothes, my leg warmers, my sweatshirt, and my hat. I walk outside my Manhattan home, hail a taxi, and tell the driver to take me to the pumping iron gym at 91st Street and First Avenue, where I work out for 2 hours. The ritual is not the stretching and weight training I put my body through each morning at the gym. The ritual is the cab. The moment I tell the driver where to go, I have completed the ritual. It's a simple act, but doing it the same way each morning habitually applies. It makes it repeatable, easy to do. It reduces the chance that I would skip it or do it differently. It is one more item in my arsenal of routines and one less thing to think about. Hailing a cab each morning may be a tiny action action, but it is a splendid example of the third law of behavior change. Researchers estimate that 40 to 50% of our actions on any given day are done out of habit. This is already a substantial percentage, but the true influence of your habits is even greater than these numbers suggest. Habits are automatic choices that influence the conscious decisions that follow. Yes, a habit can be completed in just a few seconds, but it can also shape the actions that you take for minutes or hours afterward. Habits are like the entrance ramp to a highway. They lead you down a path, and before you know it, you're speeding toward the next behavior. It seems to be easier to continue what you're already doing than to start doing something different. You sit through a bad movie for 2 hours. You keep snacking even when you're already fully check your phone for just a second, and soon you have spent 20 minutes staring at the screen. In this way, the habits you follow without thinking often determine the choices you make when you are thinking each evening. There is a tiny moment, usually around 5:15 p.m., that shapes the rest of my night. My wife walks in the door from work, and either we change into our work clothes and head to the gym, where we crash onto the couch, order Indian food, and watch The Office. Similar to while for paling the cut, the ritual is changing into my work clothes. If I change clothes, I know the work will happen. Everything that follows driving to the gym, deciding which exercises to do, stepping under the bar is easy once I've taken the first step every day. There are a handful of moments that deliver an outsized impact. I refer to these little choices as decisive moments. The moment you decide between ordering takeout or cooking dinner, the moment you choose between driving your car or riding your bike, the moment you decide between starting your homework or grabbing the video game controller. These choices are fork in the road, decisive moments. Figure 14. The difference between a good day and a bad day is often a few productive and healthy choices made at decisive moments. Each one is like a fork in the road, and these choices stack up throughout the day and can ultimately lead to very different outcomes. Decisive moments set the options available to your future self. For instance, walking into a restaurant is a decisive moment because it determines what you will be eating for lunch. Technically, you are in control of what you order, but in a larger sense, you can only order an item if it is on the menu. If you walk into a steakhouse, you can get a sirloin or a ribeye, but not sushi. Your options are constrained by what's available. They are shaped by the first choice. We are limited by where our habits led us. This is why mastering the decisive moments throughout your day is so important. Each day is made up of many moments, but it is really a few habitual choices that determine the path you take. These little choices stack up, each one setting the trajectory for how you spend the next chunk of time. Habits are the entry point, not the end point. They are the cab, not the gym. The 2-minute rule: even when you know you should start small, it's easy to start to big. When you dream about making a change, excitement inevitably takes over in you, and trying to do too much to seem the most effective way. I know to counteract this tendency is to use the 2-minute rule, which states when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. You'll find that nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. To 30 minutes of yoga becomes takeout. My yoga mat study for class becomes open. My notes. Fold the laundry becomes fold 1 pair of socks. Run 3 miles becomes time. Our running shoes. The idea is to make your habits as easy as possible to start. Anyone can meditate for 1 minute, read 1 page, or put 1 item of clothing away. And as we have just discussed, this is a powerful strategy because once you've started doing the right thing, it is much easier to continue doing it. A new habit should not feel like a challenge. The actions that follow can be challenging, but the first minutes should be easy. What you want is a gateway habit that naturally leads you down a more productive path. You can usually figure out the gateway habits that will lead to your desired outcome by mapping out your goals on a scale from very easy to very hard. For instance, running a marathon is very hard. Running a 5K is hard. Walking 10 steps is moderately difficult. Walking 10 minutes is easy, and putting on your running shoes is very easy. Your goal might be to run a marathon, but your gateway habit is to put on your running shoes. That's how you follow the 2-minute rule. Very easy, moderate, hard, very hard. Put on your running shoes. Walk 10 minutes, walk 10 steps. Run a 5K, run a marathon. Write 1 sentence, write 1 paragraph. Write 1,000 words, write a 5,000 word article. Write a book. Open your notes. Study for 10 minutes. Study for 3 hours. Get straight A's. Earn a PhD. People often think it's weird to get hyped about reading 1 page or meditating for 1 minute or making 1 sales call, but the point is not to do one thing. The point is to master the habit of showing up. The truth is a habit must be established before it can be improved. If you can learn the basic skill of showing up, then you have little hope of mastering the finer details. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the start, to the easy thing on a more consistent basis. You have to standardize before you can optimize. As you master the art of showing up, the first minutes simply become a ritual at the beginning of a larger routine. This is not merely a hack to make habits easier, but actually the ideal way to master a difficult skill. The more you ritualize the beginning of a process, the more likely it becomes that you can slip into the state of deep focus that is required to do great things. By doing the dim warm-up before every workout, you make it easier to get into a state of peak performance. By following the same creative ritual, you make it easier to get into the hard work of creating. By developing a consistent hard-down habit, you make it easier to get to bed at a reasonable time each night. You may not be able to automate the whole process, but you can make the first action mindless. Make it easy to start and the rest will follow. The 2-minute rule can seem like a trick to some people. You know that the real goal is to do more than just 2 minutes, so it may feel like you're trying to fool yourself. Nobody is actually aspiring to read 1 page or do 1 push-up or open their notes, and if you know it's a mental trick, why would you fall for it? If the 2-minute rule feels first, try this. Do it for 2 minutes and then stop. Go for a run, but you must stop after 2 minutes. Start meditating, but you must stop after 2 minutes. Study Arabic, but you must stop after 2 minutes. It's not a strategy for starting, it's the whole thing. Your habit can only last 120 seconds. One of my readers used this strategy to lose over 100 pounds. In the beginning, he went to the gym each day, but he told himself he wasn't allowed to stay for more than 5 minutes. He would go to the gym, exercise for 5 minutes, and leave as soon as his time was up. After a few weeks, he looked around and thought, well, I'm always coming here anyway. I might as well start staying a little longer. A few years later, the weight was gone. Journaling provides another example. Nearly everyone can benefit from getting their thoughts out of their head and onto paper, but most people give up after a few days or avoid it entirely because journaling feels like a chore. The secret is to always stay below the point where it feels like work. Greg McCune, a leadership consultant from the United Kingdom, built the daily journaling habit by specifically writing less than he felt like. He always stopped journaling before it seemed like a hassle. Ernest Hemingway believed in similar advice for any kind of writing. The best way is to always stop when you are going. But he said strategies like this work for another reason. They reinforce the identity you want to build. If you show up at the gym 5 days in a row, even if it's just for 2 minutes, you are casting votes for your new identity. You're not worried about getting in shape. You're focused on becoming the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. You're taking the smallest action that confirms the type of person you want to be. We rarely think about change this way because everyone is consumed by the end goal, but 1 push-up is better than not exercising. 1 minute of guitar practice is better than none at all. 1 minute of reading is better than never picking up a book. It's better to do less than you hope than to do nothing at all. At some point, once you've established the habit and you're showing up each day, you can combine the 2-minute rule with a technique we call habit shaping to scale your habit back up toward your ultimate goal. Start by mastering the first minutes of the smallest version of the behavior, then advance to an intermediate step and repeat the process, focusing on just the first 2 minutes and mastering that stage before moving on to the next level. Eventually, you will end up with the habit you had originally hoped to build while still keeping your focus where it should be, on the first minutes of the behavior. Examples of habit shaping: becoming an early riser phase, when be home by 10 p.m. every night. Phase 2, have all devices, TV, phone, etc. turned off by 10 p.m. every night. Phase 3, be in bed by 10 p.m. every night. Reading a book, talking with your partner. Phase 4, lights off by 10 p.m. every night. Phase 5, wake up at 6 a.m. every day. Becoming vegan phase 1, start eating vegetables at each meal. Phase 2, stop eating animals with 4 legs, cow, pig, lamb, etc. Phase 3, stop eating animals with 2 eggs, chicken, turkey, etc. Phase 4, stop eating animals with no legs, fish, clams, scallops, etc. Phase 5, stop eating all animal products, eggs, milk, cheese. Starting to exercise. Phase 1, change into workout clothes. Phase 2, step out the door, try taking a walk. Phase 3, drive to the gym, exercise for 5 minutes and leave. Phase 4, exercise for 15 minutes at least once per week. Phase 5, exercise 3 times per week. Nearly any larger life goal can be transformed into a 2-minute behavior. I want to live a healthy and long life. Greater than I need to stay in shape. Greater than I need to exercise. Greater than I need to change into my workout clothes. I want to have a happy marriage. Greater than I need to be a good partner. Greater than I should do something each day to make my partner's life easier. Greater than I should meal plan for next week. Whenever you are struggling to stick with a habit, you can employ the 2-minute rule. It's a simple way to make your habits easy. Chapter summary: habits can be completed in a few seconds, but continue to impact your behavior for minutes or hours afterward. Many habits occur at decisive moments, choices that are like a fork in the road and either send you in the direction of a productive day or an unproductive one. The 2-minute rule states when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. The more you ritualize the beginning of a process, the more likely it becomes that you can slip into the state of deep focus that is required to do great things. 100 days before you optimize, you can't improve a habit that doesn't exist. 14. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In the summer of 1830, Victor Hugo was facing an impossible deadline. 12 months earlier, the French author had promised his publisher a new book, but instead of writing, he spent that year pursuing other projects, entertaining guests, and delaying his work. Frustrated, Hugo's publisher responded by setting a deadline less than 6 months away. The book had to be finished by February 1831. Hugo concocted a strange plan to beat his procrastination. He collected all of his clothes and asked an assistant to lock them away in a large chest. He was left with nothing to wear except a large shawl, lacking any suitable clothing to go outdoors. He remained in his study and wrote furiously during the fall and winter of 1830. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was published weeks early on January 14, 1831. Time's success is less about making good habits easy and more about making bad habits hard. This is an inversion of the third law of behavior change. Make it difficult. If you find yourself continually struggling to follow through on your plans, then you can take a page from Victor Hugo and make your bad habits more difficult by creating what psychologists call a commitment device. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. It is a weight lock in future behavior bind you to good habits and restrict you from bad ones. When Victor Hugo shut his clothes away so he could focus on writing, he was creating a commitment device. There are many ways to create a commitment device. You can reduce reading by purchasing food in individual packages rather than in bulk size. You can voluntarily ask to be added to the ban list at casinos and online poker sites to prevent future gambling sprees. I've even heard of athletes who have to make weight for a competition, choosing to leave their wallets at home during the week before weighing so they won't be tempted to buy fast food. Is another example. My friend and fellow habits expert Neriel purchased an outlet timer, which is an adapter that he plugged in between his internet router and the power outlet at 10 p.m. each night. The outlet timer cuts off the power to the router when the internet goes off. Everyone knows it is time to go to bed. Commitment devices are useful because they enable you to take advantage of good intentions before you can fall victim to temptation. Whenever I'm looking to cut calories, for example, I will ask the waiter to split my meal and box half of it to go before the meal is served. If I waited until the meal came out and told myself I'll just eat half, it would never work. The key is to change the task such that it requires more work to get out of the good habit than to get started on it. If you're feeling motivated to get in shape, schedule a yoga session and pay ahead of time. If you're excited about the business you want to start, email an entrepreneur you respect and set up a consulting call. When the time comes to act, the only way to bail is to cancel the meeting, which requires effort and may cost money. Commitment devices increase the odds that you will do the right thing in the future by making bad habits difficult in the present. However, we can do even better. We can make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. How to automate a habit and never think about it again. John Henry Patterson was born in Dayton, in Ohio in 1840, where he spent his childhood doing chores on the family farm and working shifts at his father's sawmill. After attending college at Dartmouth, Patterson returned to Ohio and opened a small supply store for coal miners. It seemed like a good opportunity. The store faced little competition and enjoyed a steady stream of customers, but still struggled to make money. That was when Patterson discovered his employees were stealing from him. In the mid-1800s, employee theft was a common problem. Receipts were kept in an open drawer and could easily be altered or discarded. There were no video cameras to review behavior and no software to track transactions unless you were willing to hover over your employees every minute of the day or to manage all transactions yourself. It was difficult to prevent theft. As Patterson mulled over his predicament, he came across an advertisement for a new invention called Riddy's Incorporate cashier designed by fellow Dayton resident James Rhea. It was the first cash register. The machine automatically locked the cash and receipts inside after each transaction. Patterson bought it for $50 each. Employee theft at his store vanished overnight. In the next 6 months, Patterson's business went from losing money to making $5,000 in profit, the equivalent of more than $100,000 today. Patterson was so impressed with the machine that he changed businesses. He bought the rights to Riddy's invention and opened a National Cash Register company. 10 years later, National Cash Register had over 10 employees and was on its way to becoming one of the most successful businesses of its time. The best way to break a bad habit is to make it impractical to increase the friction until you don't even have the option to act. The brilliance of the cash register was that it automated ethical behavior by making stealing practically impossible rather than trying to change the employees. It made the preferred. Behavior automatic some actions like installing a cash register pay off again. And again, these one-time choices require a little bit of effort up front, but create increasing value over time. I'm fascinated by the idea that a single choice can deliver returns again and again, and I surveyed my readers on their favorite one-time actions that led to better long-term habits. The table on the following page shares some of the most popular answers. I'd wager that if the average person were to simply do half of the one-time actions on this list, even if they didn't give another thought to their habits, most would find themselves living a better life a year from now. These one-time actions are a straightforward way to employ the third law of behavior change. They make it easier to sleep well, eat healthy, be productive, save money, and generally live better. One-time actions that lock in good habits: nutrition, buy a water filter to clean your drinking water, use smaller plates to reduce caloric intake, sleep, buy a good mattress, get blanket curtains, remove your television from your bedroom, productivity, and subscribe from emails, turn off notifications and mute group chats, set your phone to silent, use email filters to clear up your inbox, delete games and social media apps on your phone. Happiness: get a dog, move to a friendly social neighborhood. General health: get vaccinated, buy good shoes to avoid back pain, buy a supportive chair or standing desk. Finance: enroll in an automatic savings plan, set up automatic bill pay, cut cable service, ask service providers to lower your bills. Of course, there are many ways to automate good habits and eliminate bad ones. Typically, they involve putting technology to work for you. Technology can transform actions that were once hard, annoying, and complicated into behaviors that are easy, painless, and simple. It is the most reliable and effective way to guarantee the right behavior. This is particularly useful for behaviors that happen infrequently to become habitual, things you have to do monthly or yearly, like rebalancing your investment portfolio, or never repeated frequently enough to become a habit. So they benefit in particular from technology. Remembering to do them for you. Other examples include medicine prescriptions can be automatically refilled. Personal finance: employees can save for retirement with an automatic wage deduction. Cooking: meal delivery services can do your grocery shopping. Productivity: social media browsing can be cut off with a website blocker. When you automate as much of your life as possible, you on the tasks machines cannot do. Yet each habit that we hand over to the authority of technology frees up time and energy to pour into the next stage of growth. As mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead wrote, civilization advances by extending the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them. Of course, the power of technology can work against us as well. Binge watching becomes a habit because you have to put more effort into stop looking at the screen than to continue doing so. Instead of pressing a button to advance to the next episode, Netflix or YouTube will autoplay it for you. All you have to do is keep your eyes open. Technology creates a level of convenience that enables you to act on your smallest whims and desires. At the mere suggestion of hunger, you can have food delivered to your door. At the slightest hint of boredom, you can get lost in the vast expanse of social media. When the effort required to act on your desires becomes effectively zero, you can find yourself slipping whatever impulse rises. At the moment, the downside of automation is that we can find ourselves jumping from an easy task to easy task without making time for more difficult but ultimately more rewarding work. I often find myself gravitating towards social media during any downtime. If I feel bored for just a fraction of a second, I reach for my phone. It's easy to write off these minor distractions as just taking a break. Over time, they can accumulate into a serious issue. The constant tug of just one more minute can prevent me from doing anything of consequence. I'm not the only one. The average person spends over 2 hours per day on social media. What could you do with an extra 600 hours per year? During the year I was writing this book, I experimented with a new time management strategy. Every Monday, my assistant would reset the passwords on all my social media accounts, which logged me out on each device all week. I worked without distraction. On Friday, she would send me the new passwords. I had the entire weekend to enjoy what social media had to offer until Monday morning, when she would do it again. If you don't have an assistant, team up with a friend or family member and reset each other's passwords each week. One of the biggest surprises was how quickly I adapted. In the first week of locking myself out of social media, I realized that I didn't need to check it nearly as often as I had been, and I certainly didn't need it each day. It had simply been so easy that it had become the default. Once my bad habit became impossible, I discovered that I did actually have the motivation to work on more meaningful tasks. After I removed the mental candy from my environment, it became much easier to eat the healthy stuff. When working in your favor, automation can make your good habits inevitable and your bad habits impossible. It is the ultimate way to lock in future behavior rather than relying on willpower in the moment. By utilizing commitment devices, strategic one-time decisions, and technology, you can create an environment of inevitability, a space where good habits are not just an outcome you hope for, but an outcome that is virtually guaranteed. Chapter summary. The inversion of the third law of behavior changes make it difficult. A commitment device is a choice you make in present that locks in better behavior in the future. The ultimate way to lock in future behavior is to automate your habits. One choices purchases like buying a better mattress or enrolling in an automatic savings plan are single actions that automate your future habits and deliver increasing returns over time using technology to automate your habits is the most reliable and effective way to guarantee the right behavior. How to create a good habit. The first law, make it obvious. 1.1. Fill out the habits scorecard. Write down your current habits to become aware of. Then 1.2. Use implementation intentions. I will behavior at time and location. 1.3. Use habit stacking after current habit. I will new habit. 1 point for design your environment. Make the cues of good habits obvious. Isabel, the second law, make it attractive. 2.1. Use temptation bundling. Pair an action you want to do with an action you need. 2. To point to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. 2.3. Create motivation ritual to something you enjoy immediately before a difficult habit. The third law, make it easy. 3.1. Reduce friction. Decrease the number of steps between you and your good habits. 3. To prime the environment. Prepare your environment to make future actions easier. 3.3. Master the decisive moment. Optimize the small choices that deliver impact. 3.4. Use the 2-minute rule. Downscale your habits until they can be done in 2 minutes or less. 3.5. Automate your habits. Invest in technology and one-time purchases that lock in future behavior. The fourth law, make it satisfying. How to break a bad habit. Inversion of the first law, make it invisible. 1.5. Reduce exposure. Remove the cues of your bad habits from your environment. Inversion of the second law, make it unattractive. To point for reframe your mindset. Highlight benefits of avoiding your bad habits. Inversion of the third law, make difficult. 3.6. Increase friction. Increase the number of steps between you and your bad habits. 3.7. Use a commitment device. Restrict your future choices to the ones that benefit you. Inversion. The fourth law, make it unsatisfying. You can download printable version of this habits cheat sheet at atomic.com. Cheat sheet. The fourth law, make it satisfying. 15. The cardinal rule of 1990s. A public health worker named Stephen Luby left his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska and bought a one-way ticket to Karachi, Pakistan. Karachi was one of the most populous cities in the world by 1998. Over 9 million people called at home. It was the economic center of Pakistan and a transportation hub with some of the most active airports and seaports in the region. In the commercial parts of town, you could find all of the standard urban amenities and bustling downtown streets. But Karachi was also one of the least livable cities in the world. Over 60 of Karachi's residents lived in squatter settlements and slums. These densely packed neighborhoods were filled with makeshift houses cobbled together from old boards, cinder blocks, and other discarded materials. There was no waste removal system, no electricity grid, no clean water supply. When dry, the streets were a combination of dust and trash. When wet, they became a muddy pit of sewage. Mosquito colonies thrived in pools of stagnant water. Children played among the garbage, and unsanitary conditions led to widespread illness and disease. Contaminated water sources caused epidemics of diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Nearly 1/3 of the children living there were malnourished. With so many people crammed into such a small space, viruses and bacterial infections spread rapidly. It was this public health crisis that had brought Stephen Luby to Pakistan. Luby and his team realized that in an environment with poor sanitation, the simple habit of washing your hands could make a real difference in the health of the residents. But they soon discovered that many people were already aware that hand washing was important, and yet despite this knowledge, many residents were washing their hands in a haphazard fashion. Some people would just run their hands under the water quickly. Others would only wash one hand. Many would simply forget to wash their hands before preparing food. Everyone said hand washing was important, but few people made a habit out of it. The problem wasn't knowledge. The problem was consistency. That was when Luby and his team partnered with Procter & Gamble to supply the neighborhood with Safeguard soap. Compared to your standard bar of soap, using Safeguard was a more enjoyable experience in Pakistan. Safeguard was a premium soap. Luby told me the study participants commonly mentioned how much they liked it. The soap foamed easily and people were able to lather their hands with suds. It smelled great. Instantly, hand washing became slightly more pleasurable. I see the goal of hand washing promotion not as behavior change but as habit adoption. Luby said it is a lot easier for people to adopt a product that provides a strong positive sensory signal, for example, the taste of toothpaste, than it is to adopt a habit that does not provide pleasurable sensory feedback like flossing one's teeth. The marketing team at Procter & Gamble talked about trying to create a positive hand washing experience. Within months, the researchers saw a rapid shift in the health of children in the neighborhood. The rate of diarrhea fell by 50 to pneumonia by 48. And impetigo, bacterial skin infection by 35%. The long-term effects were even better. We went back to some of the households in Karachi 6 years after. Luby told me over 95 of households who had been given the soap for free and encouraged to wash their hands at a hand washing station with soap and water available. When our study team visited, we had not given any soap to the intervention group for over 5 years, but during the trial they had become so habituated to wash their hands that they had maintained the practice. It was a powerful example of the fourth fourth and final law of behavior change make it satisfying. We are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. This is entirely logical. Feelings of pleasure, even minor ones like washing your hands with soap that smells nice and lathers, well, or signals that tell the brain, this feels good, do this again next time. Pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating. Take the story of chewing gum. Chewing gum had been sold commercially throughout the 1800s, but it wasn't until Wrigley launched in 1891 that it became a worldwide habit. Early versions were made from relatively bland resins, chewy but not tasty. Wrigley revolutionized the industry by adding flavors like spearmint and juicy fruit, which made the product flavorful and fun to use. Then they went a step further and began pushing chewing gum as a pathway to clean mouth. Advertisements told readers to refresh your taste. Tasty flavors and the feeling of a fresh mouth provided little bits of immediate reinforcement and made the product satisfying to use. Consumption skyrocketed and Wrigley became the largest chewing gum company in the world. Toothpaste had a similar trajectory. Manufacturers enjoyed great success when they added flavors like spearmint, peppermint, and cinnamon to their products. These flavors don't improve the effectiveness of toothpaste. They simply create a clean mouth feel and make the experience of brushing your teeth more pleasurable. My wife actually stopped using Sensodyne because she didn't like the aftertaste. She switched to brand with a stronger mint flavor, which proved to be more satisfying. Conversely, if an experience is not satisfying, we have little reason to repeat it. In my research, I came across the story of the woman who had a narcissistic relative who drove her nuts. In an attempt to spend less time with this egomaniac, she acted as dull and as boring as possible whenever he was around. Within a few encounters, he started avoiding her because he found her so uninteresting. Stories like these are evidence of the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. You learn what to do in the future based on what you were rewarded for doing or punished for doing in the past. Positive emotions cultivate habits. Negative emotions destroy them. The first three laws of behavior change make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. Increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The fourth law of behavior change make it satisfying, increases the odds that a behavior will be repeated next time. It completes the habit loop. But there is a trick. We are not looking for just any type of satisfaction. We are looking for immediate satisfaction. The mismatch between immediate and delayed rewards. Imagine you're an animal roaming the plains of Africa, a giraffe, or an elephant or lion. On any given day, most of your decisions have an immediate impact. You are always thinking about what to eat or where to sleep or how to avoid a predator. You are constantly focused on the present or the very near future. You live in what scientists call an immediate return environment because your actions instantly deliver clear and immediate outcomes. Now switch back to your human self. In modern society, many of the choices you make today will not benefit you immediately. If you do a good job at work, you'll get a paycheck in a few weeks. If you exercise today, perhaps you won't be overweight next year. If you save money now, maybe you will have enough for retirement decades from now. You live in what scientists call a delayed return environment because you can work for years before your actions deliver the intended payoff. The human brain did not evolve for life in a delayed return environment. The earliest remains of modern humans, known as Homo sapiens sapiens, are approximately 100 years old. These were the first humans to have a brain relatively similar to ours. In particular, the neocortex, the newest part of the brain and the region responsible for higher functions like language, was roughly the same size 100 years ago as today. You are walking around with the same hardware as your Paleolithic ancestors. It is only recently, during the last 500 years or so, that society has shifted to a predominantly delayed return environment. Compared to the age of the brain, modern society is brand new. In the last 100 years, we have seen the rise of the car, the airplane, the television, the personal computer, the internet, the smartphone, and we can say the world has changed much in recent years, but human nature has changed little. Similar to other animals on the African savanna, our ancestors spent their days responding to grave threats, securing the next meal, and taking shelter from a storm. It made sense to place a high value on instant gratification. The distant future was less of a concern, and after thousands of generations in an immediate return environment, our brains evolved to prefer quick payoffs to long-term ones. Behavioral economists refer to this tendency as time insistency. That is the way your brain evaluates rewards is inconsistent across time. You value the present more than the future. Usually this tendency serves us well. A reward that is certain right now is typically worth more than one that is merely possible in the future, but occasionally our bias toward instant gratification causes problems. Why would someone smoke if they know it increases the risk of lung cancer? Why would someone overeat when they know it increases their risk of of obesity. Why would someone having safe sex if they know it can result in sexually transmitted disease? Once you understand how the brain prioritizes rewards, the answers become clear. The consequences of bad habits are delayed while the rewards are immediate. Smoking might kill you in 10 years, but it reduces stress and eases your nicotine cravings. Now, overeating is harmful in the long run, but appetizing in the moment. Sex, safe or not, provides pleasure right away. Disease and infection won't show up for days or weeks, even years. Every habit produces multiple outcomes across time. Unfortunately, these outcomes are often misaligned with our bad habits. The immediate outcome usually feels good, but the ultimate outcome feels bad. With good habits, it is the reverse. The immediate outcome is undeniable, but the ultimate outcome feels good. The French economist Frederick Bastiat explained the problem clearly when he wrote, "Almost